What if I told you that the mixed-up feelings you've had lately, the sudden changes in what's important to you, the weird dreams and surprising emotional changes, what if all of this isn't you falling apart, but actually you growing stronger? What if your soul is waking up to its real self, and everything that feels uncomfortable, confusing, or even scary right now is actually proof that you're changing into who you were always supposed to be? And what if there are 12 clear signs that this spiritual awakening is happening to you? Signs so specific, so common in human life, that knowing them can help you handle this big change with bravery instead of fear. Because here's what most people don't know about spiritual awakening. It's not a gentle, calm process where you suddenly start meditating and feeling happy all the time. Real awakening is often messy, confusing, and disruptive. It breaks down everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world. But it's also the most important thing that can happen to a person. So if you've been feeling like your life is falling apart, if nothing makes sense anymore, if you're questioning everything you once believed about yourself and the world around you, don't panic. You might not be losing your mind. You might be finding your soul, the great disruption. Let me ask you something that might hit closer to home than you expect. Have you been feeling lately like you're living someone else's life? Maybe you wake up in the morning and the job that once felt important now feels pointless. Maybe the relationships that once made you happy now feel empty or tiring. Maybe the goals you've been working towards suddenly seem useless, like chasing shadows that will never bring you real happiness. Or perhaps it's more subtle. Maybe you find yourself questioning beliefs you've held for years. Maybe you're having thoughts and realizations that seem to come from nowhere, thoughts that feel wiser and deeper than your usual thinking. Maybe you're feeling emotions you can't explain, or feeling connected to people and causes you never cared about before. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone and you're definitely not going crazy. What you're experiencing might be the beginning of the biggest change a human mind can go through: spiritual awakening. But here's what's confusing about this process. It doesn't feel spiritual at first. It feels disruptive, uncomfortable, sometimes even terrifying. Because awakening doesn't just add new awareness to your existing sense of self. It completely changes who you think you are. Think of it like this. Imagine you've been living your entire life in a small, dimly lit room, and suddenly someone throws open the curtains and shows you that you're actually in a beautiful palace with countless rooms you never knew existed. The light is too bright at first. The space feels too big. Part of you wants to close the curtains and go back to the familiar small space. This is what spiritual awakening feels like in its early stages. Your awareness is growing beyond the limited identity you've been carrying. And that growth can feel unstable before it feels freeing. But understanding what's happening to you, recognizing the signs of this special process can turn confusion into curiosity, fear into fascination, and resistance into surrender to the most beautiful journey your soul can take. If you're ready to understand what might be happening to you, if you're willing to explore the possibility that your discomfort is actually your awakening, I need you to like this video right now. Because what we're about to explore together could be the key to understanding yourself in a completely new way. The first wave: breaking open. The journey of spiritual awakening often begins with what can only be described as a breaking open. And this breaking shows up in 3 clear ways that most people experience before they realize what's actually happening. Sign number 1: the collapse of old identities. The first sign that your spiritual awakening has begun is perhaps the most confusing. You start to feel like you don't know who you are anymore. The roles, titles, and identities that once defined you, your job, your relationships, your social status, your beliefs about yourself, they begin to feel like costumes that no longer fit. You look in the mirror and wonder, who is this person really underneath all these labels and expectations? This isn't depression, though it can feel similar. This isn't a midlife crisis, though the timing might overlap. This is your soul beginning to tell the difference between who you really are and who you've been taught to think you are. Sarah, a successful lawyer, described it this way: I woke up one morning and looked at my closet full of power suits, my awards on the wall, my business cards with all my credentials, and I felt like I was looking at objects from someone else's life. I kept asking myself, but who am I really when I take all of this away? This identity breakdown is actually sacred work. Your soul is removing the layers of conditioning, expectation, and false self-concept that have built up over your lifetime. It's like peeling an onion. Each layer you remove reveals something more real underneath. Sign number 2, the great questioning. The second sign involves a sudden, strong questioning of everything you once accepted without doubt. You find yourself asking questions you never asked before. What is the point of all this? Why am I here? What really matters? Is this all there is? But these aren't the casual, deep questions we all wonder about sometimes. These questions feel urgent, essential, like your life depends on finding the answers. You might question your religion, your political beliefs, your career choices, your relationships, even your basic ideas about reality itself. Everything that once seemed solid and certain becomes fluid and questionable. This can be scary for people around you who aren't going through their own awakening. They might think you're having a breakdown, becoming unstable, or going through a difficult phase. But what's really happening is that your awareness is growing beyond the narrow limits of normal thinking. Sign number 3, emotional intensity and purging. The third early sign is a surge of emotional experience that can feel overwhelming. You might find yourself crying for no clear reason, feeling waves of sadness about things you can't even identify, or experiencing sudden rushes of love and compassion that feel too big for your body to contain, or feeling angry about injustices you never paid attention to before. This emotional intensity isn't random. Your awareness is processing and releasing emotions that have been stored, not just from this lifetime, but potentially from much deeper sources. Some spiritual traditions call this purging, the release of emotional baggage that's been blocking your true nature. Marcus, a construction worker who began his awakening at age 45, described it this way. I would be driving to work and suddenly start crying about things that happened when I was a kid, or about strangers I saw on the news, or about the beauty of a sunrise. I thought I was losing it, but somehow it felt like I was finally finding it. If you're recognizing these first 3 signs in your own experience, let me know in the comments by writing breaking, because understanding that this breaking open is actually a breaking through can help you handle this challenging phase with more trust and less resistance. The second wave, expanding awareness. As your awakening continues, you enter what might be called the expansion phase, where your awareness begins to stretch beyond its previous limits. This brings its own set of clear signs. Sign number 4, heightened intuitive abilities. You start knowing things you shouldn't know. Maybe you sense when someone is going to call before the phone rings. Maybe you walk into a room and immediately feel the emotional atmosphere. Maybe you have insights about people or situations that prove to be remarkably accurate, even though you have no logical reason for these insights. Your intuition isn't just getting stronger, it's becoming a reliable source of information that often proves more accurate than your logical mind. You begin to trust these inner knowings, even when they go against what your rational mind is telling you. This happens because spiritual awakening slowly breaks down the barriers between conscious and unconscious awareness. You start accessing information through channels that aren't limited to your 5 physical senses. Sign number 5, synchronicities and meaningful coincidence. Suddenly, your life becomes filled with coincidences that feel too meaningful to be random. You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years and they contact you the same day. You need guidance about a decision, and you overhear a conversation that gives exactly the perspective you need. Books, articles, or videos that contain exactly the information you're looking for seem to appear in your life at precisely the right moment. These synchronicities feel like the universe is actively communicating with you, providing signs and guidance for your journey. And the more you pay attention to them, the more often they happen. Carl Jung called this meaningful coincidence. But during spiritual awakening, it becomes a constant feature of daily life. It's as if the boundary between your inner world and outer world becomes more open, allowing for a flowing exchange of meaning and guidance. Sign number 6, shift in relationships and social circles. You begin to outgrow relationships that once felt comfortable and essential. This doesn't necessarily mean these relationships become hostile or dramatic. Often they simply begin to feel mismatched, like you're operating at different frequencies. Conversations that once engaged you now feel shallow. Social activities that once brought you joy now feel empty or draining. At the same time, you find yourself drawn to new types of people, often individuals who are also questioning normal reality, exploring spiritual topics, or engaged in personal growth work. You might feel instantly connected to people you've just met, as if you recognize them at a soul level. This relationship shift can be one of the most challenging parts of awakening, especially when it affects family relationships or long-term friendships. But it's also proof that your awareness is aligning with your real values and interests, rather than social expectations or habit. Sign number 7. Changes in sleep and dream patterns. Your relationship with sleep and dreams goes through big changes. You might need less sleep but feel more rested. Or you might go through periods of needing much more sleep than usual, as if your system is processing huge amounts of new information. Your dreams become more vivid, more symbolic, and often seem to contain guidance or teachings. Some people experience what can only be described as dream teachings, receiving information, insights, or even healing while asleep. Others report lucid dreaming or out-of-body experiences that feel more real than ordinary awareness. These sleep changes reflect the fact that awareness expansion doesn't stop when you close your eyes. Your awareness is literally rewiring itself, and much of this work happens during sleep states when the rational mind is less active. The third wave, embodying truth. As awakening deepens, you move into what might be called the embodiment phase, where new awareness begins to integrate into how you actually live your life. Sign number 8. Radical shift in values and priorities. What once seemed important becomes unimportant, and what you once ignored becomes essential. Material success, social status, and external approval lose their grip on your motivation. Instead, you find yourself caring deeply about things like authenticity, service to others, creative expression, and spiritual growth. Money and possessions don't disappear from your life, but they stop being primary motivators. You might find yourself making decisions that seem impractical or risky to others, but feel absolutely right to you. Leaving a high-paying job to pursue meaningful work, ending relationships that look perfect from the outside, but feel empty inside. Moving to a new location because something inside you says it's time. This value shift reflects your awareness aligning with what's truly important to your soul, rather than what society has programmed you to want. Sign number 9. Increased sensitivity to energy and environment. You become extremely sensitive to the energetic quality of people, places, and situations. Crowded spaces might feel overwhelming. Negative people might feel genuinely toxic to be around. Violent or disturbing media content that you once consumed without thinking might now feel unbearable. On the other hand, natural environments, spiritual spaces, or the presence of genuinely loving people might feel nourishing in ways you never experienced before. This isn't you becoming fragile or oversensitive. Your awareness is developing more refined perception, picking up details that most people filter out. You're literally sensing the energetic reality that underlies physical appearances. Sign number 10. Compulsion toward service and healing. You feel a growing urge to help others, often in ways that seem to come from nowhere. This might show up as wanting to heal others' pain, share wisdom you're discovering, create art or music that expresses deeper truths, or dedicate yourself to causes that serve the greater good. The urge to be of service often feels stronger than personal ambitions or desires. This happens because awakening awareness naturally recognizes its connection with all life. As you remember who you really are beyond your separate ego, you naturally want to contribute to the awakening and well-being of the whole. But here's what's important. This service orientation isn't about sacrificing yourself or becoming a martyr. It's about finding the unique way your individual gifts can serve the collective awakening that's happening on the planet right now. If you're feeling this call to serve others through your awakening process, I want you to share this video with someone who might need to understand what they're going through. Because one of the most powerful forms of service is helping others recognize their own awakening process, instead of thinking they're falling apart. Sign number 11. Direct spiritual experiences. You begin having experiences that can only be described as direct contact with spiritual reality. This might show up as feeling a deep sense of unity with all existence during meditation, or quiet moments, or experiencing what seems like direct communication with higher guidance, deceased loved ones or spiritual teachers, or having moments of expanded awareness where you feel yourself as far more than your individual personality. These experiences are often impossible to describe well in words. They feel more real than ordinary reality, yet they can't be proven or shared in normal ways. They provide a direct knowing that awareness is far more vast and mysterious than mainstream culture admits. For many people, these direct spiritual experiences become the foundation of unshakable faith, not belief in external authorities or doctrines, but personal knowing based on direct experience of expanded reality. The integration, becoming whole. The final sign represents not just awakening, but the integration of awakening into a new way of being in the world. Peaceful acceptance of paradox and mystery. You develop a deep comfort with not knowing, with paradox and with mystery. Instead of needing everything to make logical sense, you become comfortable holding multiple truths at the same time. You understand that reality is far more complex and mysterious than any single perspective can capture. You stop trying to figure everything out and start trusting the process of life itself. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop thinking critically. Rather, you develop what some call beginner's mind, a deep humility about how much you don't know, combined with excitement about what you might discover. You realize that awakening isn't a destination you arrive at, but an ongoing process of becoming more aware, more loving, more authentic. Each day brings new opportunities for growth, new layers of understanding, new ways of expressing your true nature. But here's the big shift that happens when you reach this level of integration. You stop trying to awaken and start being awake. The seeking energy transforms into simply living from your awakened awareness, moment by moment. This is when you realize that spiritual awakening isn't about becoming someone special or achieving some extraordinary state. It's about returning to your natural state of being, conscious, loving, connected, and free. And from this place of integrated awakening, your entire life becomes a form of spiritual practice. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to express love. Every challenge becomes a chance to deepen wisdom. Every moment becomes sacred simply because you're aware enough to recognize its preciousness. The deeper understanding. But let me address something important that often confuses people going through spiritual awakening. This process doesn't happen in a neat straight line. You don't complete sign number 1 and then move on to sign number 2. Awakening is more like a spiral dance where you cycle through different parts of the process at different depths. You might experience deep spiritual insights one day and feel completely lost the next. You might have periods of intense emotional purging, followed by phases of peaceful clarity. This is completely normal. Awakening isn't about maintaining some constant elevated state. It's about becoming more aware of the full range of human experience, while maintaining your connection to deeper truth. And here's something that might surprise you. The challenges don't end when you awaken. In fact, in some ways they get stronger, because as your awareness expands, you become more aware of suffering, both your own and others. You feel more deeply, you care more intensely, you see through illusions that once provided comfort, but you also develop greater ability to hold these intense experiences without being overwhelmed by them. You learn to feel deeply while remaining centered in your deeper knowing of who you are and why you're here. The goal isn't to escape human experience, but to transform your relationship with it. Instead of being a victim of your thoughts, emotions, and circumstances, You become a conscious participant in your own evolution. This is why awakening is both the most challenging and the most rewarding process a human being can go through. It asks everything of you. All your courage, all your honesty, all your willingness to let go of who you thought you were. But it gives you everything in return: authentic self-knowledge, genuine freedom, and the ability to live from love rather than fear. And perhaps most importantly, it allows you to become a source of healing and awakening for others. Your own process of breaking open and becoming whole gives you the ability to hold space for others, going through their own transformations. The sacred responsibility. As your awakening deepens and integrates, you begin to understand something that completely changes how you see your role in the world. Your personal awakening is not just about you. Every person who awakens to their true nature contributes to a collective awakening that's happening across humanity. Your individual healing work heals not just your own wounds but generational patterns that have been passed down through your family lineage. Your growing awareness adds to the pool of wisdom and love available to all beings. This is why your awakening process, as personal and individual as it feels, is actually one of the most important contributions you can make to the world. Every fear you heal, every limiting belief you overcome, every moment you choose love over fear. These personal victories ripple outward in ways you may never fully see. But this understanding also brings responsibility. Once you know that awareness is the primary creative force in reality, once you understand that your thoughts and emotions affect not just your own life, but the entire field of human awareness, you can no longer live unconsciously. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you have to be aware. You have to take responsibility for your inner life as carefully as you would take responsibility for your actions in the physical world. And here's what's beautiful about this responsibility. It's not a burden. It's a privilege. You get to participate consciously in the greatest adventure in the universe, the evolution of consciousness itself. Every day you have opportunities to choose love over fear, understanding over judgment, service over selfishness. Every moment you can align your thoughts, words, and actions with your highest understanding of truth. Every interaction becomes a chance to contribute to the awakening and healing of the whole. This is what it means to live as an awakened being, not to be perfect, but to be aware. Not to have all the answers, but to ask better questions. Not to be without challenges, but to meet challenges from a place of deeper wisdom and love. If you're recognizing your own awakening process in these signs, I want you to subscribe right now. Because understanding your awakening is just the beginning. Learning to navigate it consciously, to integrate it wisely, and to use it in service of the greater good. This is the real work, and it's work that's too important to do alone. So where does this leave you? If you've recognized yourself in these 12 signs, if you're beginning to understand that what you've been experiencing isn't breakdown, but breakthrough, if you're starting to see your confusion and discomfort as sacred symptoms of your soul's awakening, what do you do with this knowledge? First, you give yourself permission to trust the process, even when it feels chaotic, even when others don't understand, even when you can't see where it's leading. Trust that your awareness knows what it's doing. The same intelligence that grows a seed into a tree, that heals a cut on your finger, that beats your heart without your conscious control. This intelligence is organizing your awakening. Second, you stop trying to control or speed up the process. Awakening has its own timing, its own rhythm, its own wisdom. Your job isn't to force it to happen faster or more conveniently. Your job is to cooperate with it, to say yes to what's emerging, to support the process rather than resist it. Third, you seek community and support. Find others who understand what you're going through. Read books, watch videos, attend workshops, join groups. Surround yourself with people and resources that normalize and support your transformation. Awakening can feel isolating, but you're not alone in this process. Fourth, you practice self-compassion. Be gentle with yourself as you navigate this big change. You're literally becoming a new person, and that takes time. Honor your sensitivity, respect your needs, and treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. going through a major life transition. And finally, you remember that your awakening is a gift, not just to you, but to the world. Every step you take toward greater awareness, every healing you accomplish, every moment you live from your real truth, this is your contribution to the collective awakening of humanity. Your personal journey of breaking open and becoming whole is actually a sacred act of service to all life. By awakening to your true nature, you help create the possibility for others to awaken to theirs, the eternal truth. As we reach the end of our exploration together, I want to leave you with the most important truth about spiritual awakening. You're not becoming someone new. You are remembering who you have always been. Beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the fears and limitations and false identities, beneath all the confusion and seeking and struggle, your true nature has always been whole, loving, wise, and free. Awakening is simply the process of removing everything that hides this truth. The 12 signs we've explored aren't proof that something is being added to you. They're proof that something false is being removed from you. The breaking open, the questioning, the emotional intensity, the expanding awareness, the shifting relationships, the changing values, all of this is your real self emerging from beneath layers of conditioning that never really belonged to you anyway. This means that every moment of difficulty in your awakening process is actually a moment of liberation. Every time you feel lost, you're actually finding yourself. Every time you feel like your life is falling apart, the false structures are dissolving to reveal the unshakable foundation of your true being. And here's the most beautiful part. This process never ends. Awakening isn't a destination you reach and then stay at forever. It's an infinite journey of becoming more aware, more loving, more authentically yourself. There are always deeper layers to explore, greater capacities for love to develop, more refined ways of expressing your unique gifts in service to the whole. Your awakening is not just your return to your true nature. It's your conscious participation in the evolution of consciousness itself. You are literally helping to birth a new level of human awareness, a new way of being on this planet, a new possibility for what it means to be human. This is why your process matters so much. This is why every sign of awakening you experience is sacred. This is why every challenge you face and every breakthrough you achieve contributes to something far greater than your individual life. You're not just awakening for yourself, you are awakening for all of us. Your courage to face the breakdown of who you thought you were creates permission for others to do the same. Your willingness to live from your real truth makes it easier for others to find and express theirs. So whether you're just beginning to recognize these signs in your own experience, or whether you're deep in the midst of your awakening journey, or whether you're learning to integrate and embody your expanded awareness, know that you are exactly where you need to be. Trust the process, honor the journey, and remember that every step you take toward greater awareness is a gift to the entire universe. Your awakening is not a personal achievement. It's a cosmic event, and the fact that you're here recognizing these signs, asking these questions, opening to these possibilities, this itself is proof that the universe is awakening to itself through you. Welcome home to who you've always been. Welcome to your own spiritual awakening. And welcome to the most important adventure awareness can take, the journey back to its own infinite nature. The signs are showing you the way. Are you ready to follow?